pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the May 21, 2018 meeting for the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair, and joining me today is Commissioner Shelley Bueller. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Bob Archer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Clerk, just a couple of changes to the agenda this morning. Item D1, which is the contract with Willis Towers Watson, it would be moved to the meeting for Thursday, the 24th. We had a brief issue, and that needs to be on the 24th agenda, so that's going to be moved to that agenda. But then also, we have a special presentation that we're going to ask to add as if we can do that first, that will be technically titled 1-3.
Okay, so you can have it on the third item.
Yeah, but if we could take that one up first as a presentation by Tom Vlock for a recognition of a public solid waste employee. So,
You want to make that a motion?
and it's motion made to
Second.
add. Motion made by Commissioner Cook to defer one item and add one item. Second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. And although technically titled 1-3, Madam Clerk, if we could take up that item.
Okay. Item 1, proclamations presentation. Number 3, which is now 1, Tom Block. Tom Block, Public Works Solid Waste Director, presentation to Joan Graves upon her retirement after many, many years with Shawnee County.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block with Public Works and Solid Waste, and that's what you call Nebraska math. It is with, I guess, somewhat pleasure, I'm not sure, happy for Joan, in some reservation. Joan has been, and many people have heard the name Joan Graves over the years. If you haven't seen the face, this is the face that goes with the name. And I know numerous times I talk about events that have been really successful in the solid waste when it comes to electronic recycling and the household hazardous waste. Well, most of the credit goes to this person right here. And Joan has been with the county for a long time, since 1988. And now it's time for her to go out to pasture, apparently. And she is, wow, now, quote unquote pasture. But I know it's something she's been looking forward to, and something that she's well deserved. But over the years, like I said, she started on June 28, 1988. She's been instrumental. She was instrumental in the establishment of the curbside recycling program. She organized several tire abatement events throughout the years over the past couple decades. She implemented and organized our electronic recycling event that we co-host with the City of Topeka. She's very involved in our household hazardous waste facility and has been involved in that the entire time. She's given numerous recycling public education presentations to civic organizations and other NIAs and groups of that nature. She was also awarded or nominated for 2013 YWCA Women of Distinction Award. And she was robbed. She should have won it. She's a 20-year member of the Keep America Beautiful, and she's a current member of the Keep America Beautiful board. I'm very happy for Joan that she's reached this point in her career. She's very happy she's reached this point in her career. She says she's had to smile. She says she can't wipe it off.
I know.
She can't wipe the smile off my face the last week or so. But it was my pleasure to congratulate her on an unbelievable career with Shawnee County and Shawnee County Solid Waste, Shawnee County Recycling. So it is with that, I would like to present Joan with a plaque of 30 years of outstanding service. She's going to be actually retiring or not coming back to work as of Wednesday, which happens to be the day before her birthday. So,
Nice.
but her official retirement date will be July 20th. That will give her 30 years, so from June 20th, 1988 to July 20th, 2018, Joan Graves of Solid Waste. So it's my pleasure to give that to Joan, and congratulations.
Oh, yeah. I just want to say thank you. I actually have always enjoyed my job. I just hate leaving home every morning, so now I won't have to anymore, and I can watch it snow and rain and whatever from home. So it's been a great ride, but I'm glad it's time to move on. Thank you.
Well, Joan, if I could say something.
Absolutely.
The time that you've given to Shawnee County, just not during the regular workday, but then the weekends and everything else. No, I know, I've seen you everywhere, so thank you for everything you've done for Shawnee County, sincerely.
Absolutely. That solid waste and the recycling, it just wouldn't have worked as well and been as successful but for you. So your fingerprints are all over the county. So thank you for everything you've done and keeping the county beautiful. So.
Thank you. Congratulations. Oh, thanks.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, well deserved. Yeah. Enjoy.
Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 1, the real one, presentation of Vallejo's annual report. Bill Persinger, CEO.
If we could have Mr. Henderson make a presentation this morning, and Bill.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, thank you, Chairman Cook, Commissioners Bueller and Archer. It's always good to come before you and see a friendly face. And thank you for 50 years of continuous support for Vallejo. And this report is for last year, our 2017 annual report, where we celebrated our 50th year. And the county support has been fundamental and foundational throughout that period of time, and we certainly thank you for that. I'm not going to read the report to you because you have that, but I do want to hit just a few of the highlights. And of course, our mission statement is to promote behavioral health, wellness, and recovery through excellence as the provider of choice for comprehensive, compassionate, and fiscally responsible outcomes-driven care. And Vallejo itself means to be well. And so that is our focus, where we believe that people can recover and people can become well. We work through a collaborative, integrative, consumer-driven, individualized mental health and substance abuse services approach with the goal of recovery. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the services that we provide that our folks have been able to benefit from. We have crisis interventions and screening 24/7. Our community care crisis center operates 24/7. Our co-responder program operates 24/7. We have outpatient and residential treatment for addictions, mental health residential care, as well as case management and care coordination. And then also we have a Navigate program for young adults that are experiencing the onset of mental illness, and of course our primary care clinic. We provide services not only at our community mental health center, but throughout the entire community. We employ 304 persons. Our expense budget for 2017 was $20,331,000, and we provide services to 6,782 unique, unduplicated individuals. The county, city, state, federal, and private grants provide base and specialty funding, and of course, Medicaid, Medicare, commercial insurance, and sliding scale fees are generated critical revenue on a fee-for-service basis. And last year, we provided $2,355,000 in uncompensated charity care as safety net providers. We were able to generate some additional funding through grants. Just to name a couple of those, we received $500,000 from KDADS, and that is used to strengthen our services at our residence, the crisis care facility, being able to provide medication availability and professional security. It also covers a portion of the cost of those uninsured that are receiving services in that program. We also received a grant from the St. Francis Foundation of $250,000, and that allowed us to reopen our primary care clinic at Vallejo. We continue to look at ways to be more efficient, yet provide good quality services. I want to highlight some of the measurable outcomes that we were really thrilled about. 96% of our consumers ranked the overall satisfaction level as satisfied or very satisfied. Our Vallejo co-responders in working with law enforcement engaged in 1,404 contacts with vulnerable at-risk persons, and incarceration only occurred in 2% of those encounters. So we feel like that was a tremendous asset, as well as the Shawnee County Jail. There were 184 crisis intervention screenings on site at the Shawnee County Correctional Facility. At our crisis center, on average during business hours, persons in need of crisis intervention were seen within 11.8 minutes, and those coming in after hours were seen within 12.5 minutes. 99% of the persons who presented at risk to Osawatomie State Hospital were diverted from admission. 99% of our consumers who completed the crisis diversion services avoided an admission to Osawatomie State Hospital in the 30 days following the crisis. 85% of our social detox consumers successfully completed that program. 50% of our persons that were suffering from severe and persistent mental illness enrolled in our supportive employment service programs and are employed. And 99% of those receiving individual counseling reported good to excellent level of satisfaction. And since reopening the Vallejo Primary Care Clinic since last September, we have scheduled 1,516 appointments. So it is a great honor and privilege to be able to serve those individuals in the community and receive the support of this tremendous Shawnee County Commission. So I'm happy to stand for questions, as well as my colleagues. We have our CEO, Bill Persinger, our Vice Chair, Dick Klein, and our Secretary, Mr. Mike Wilson. Thank you.
Commissioner Archer, any questions?
No questions, just congratulations
Thank you.
on your success. It's always, to me, from an accounting perspective, to see measurable quantitative results. We hear so many times about anecdotal results, and this is really a good thing, trust me. But when you see numbers to back up success, it's very impressive. So congratulations. I think the partnership with Vallejo and Shawnee County has just been outstanding over the years, and I couldn't be more happy. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Wheeler?
I'll just add, I know we've had this partnership for 50 years, but
Yes.
it's not until recently that we started receiving these reports. And I think they have been very, very beneficial for us to learn more and for the community to learn more. So I really appreciate that.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Commissioner Archer, I would agree with you that this has been a good partnership, and we do appreciate having the results of the updates. But I think that still there's so much that's left undone and so much that could be done that we could divert individuals from being incarcerated, from potential crises, from crimes, that the mental health issues that we're really looking at now are really highlighting, but continue to need more public information to and to improve access to. Hopefully the state can see what we're doing here and provide that to the rest of the state, including Shawnee County and Vallejo. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. Our next item.
Item 2, under proclamations, presentations, reflect that Commissioner Bueller is appointing Larry Wolgast to the Riverfront Authority Board effective July 1, 2018.
I know we have the mayor here in attendance, but I first want to say my thanks to Beth Fager. She has been a longtime member of that board, and she's served in a leadership position for a long, long time, and she has continued to move that board forward, and she has been very dedicated. So I want to publicly say thank you to her. But then it is my privilege that Larry Wolgast is, everybody knows Larry, so, but he has had an amazing professional career in this community and a distinguished political career, and he wants to continue to be involved, and I'm pleased that I can help you do that. So, and I know you will be a huge asset to that board. So I will make that motion, and if you want to say anything, you sure can.
Before you vote?
It would, yeah, like that'll make a difference, Larry.
This is presumptuous on my part. Well, thank you, Commissioner Bueller and Commissioners. This is an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity, and I too want to acknowledge the role of Beth Fager. I believe she is the only person still on the board from its beginning, and she has, in a sense, been the Riverfront Authority for all these years. Outstanding service. And during difficult times of getting this together and getting the community to support and understand it, and I look forward to serving. I think the Riverfront is going to be an important program in the next years for our community. And I look forward to representing the county in this position. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Can I have the honor of seconding this appointment?
Absolutely. One thing that most people may not know about the mayor is that he was the chairperson of the committee that selected the seal for Shawnee County. So it's good to see him back at work on this side of the street.
I think he wrote a book or something, too. Didn't you write a book? Or, yeah, there's a lot of history there.
So, motion made by Commissioner
Yes.
Bueller to appoint Larry Wolgast to the Riverfront Authority, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There are 3 items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions?
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
We have vouchers totaling $1,032,083.76. We have pool cash and payroll, $539,679.62. Detention facility, most of this is Airmark, $116,301.55. And then Health Insurance Administration, most of that is MedTrack, $110,780.31. And I have no questions. I'll move approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval of the correction orders.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider approval of request to award bid to Kent Fence Company for the removal and installation of new fencing around Hillcrest Hillcrest Pool, and authorization and execution of contract C-164-2018 for same, with funding in an amount of $34,323 from the Capital Maintenance 3R Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This is not a new item. This is just a bid that has come back in. This was identified early on a couple times as part of the overall improvements that we're doing at the Hillcrest Community Center, the Hillcrest Pool, and the Hillcrest Park. What this will do after the season's over is have a new fencing up there and remove the existing fence that's there, part of some of the other improvements that's going on. Any specific questions you may have, both Sean Osborne and Dave Alaker are both here as well this morning.
Any questions for John regarding this item?
Nobody, I'll move approval of the contract.
Motion for approval of the contract by Commissioner Bueller.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-165-2018 with Confluence, Inc. for the development and implementation of a Gage Park master plan at a cost of $138,000, which is provided through a cost-sharing agreement lessening the portion provided by the Parks and Recreation Building Maintenance Fund to not exceed $55,949.
Commissioners, some questions, if I was you, that I may have. I'll just go ahead and answer a couple of those to get started here. Didn't we just do a master plan a few years ago? Yes, we did do a master plan, but that master plan was a comprehensive one for the entire community, the entire department, looked at different things, looked like operating procedures, like gave us community visions for land, facilities, programming, operations, staffing, and financing. This, although we're using the same words here with a master plan, this is a specific one. This comes down to a much smaller level. We'll be working with just Gage Park, the partners at Gage Park, the business operation parts of some of that. You'll see some of that from some of the presentation that we have here from Confluence and some of the partners that we have here. This is actually, I think, one of the things that when we merged the Parks and Rec departments, this is one of the things that I was looking forward to when we merged them, is to see how, if we can save the taxpayers significant amounts of money over the next few years. Operation dollars, all of those type of things, working together with Kansas Children's Discovery Center, the Helen Hawker Theater, the zoo, all of those people are here this morning as well, too. I will turn this over now to Rachel. No, and Rachel is turning it over to John Boyd this morning for the presentation on what we'd like to do at Gage Park.
Oh, here we go. So. Morning, Commissioners. John Boyd, Parks and Rec. The beautiful 160 acres of Gage Park has been making memories since 1899 and continues to play a significant role in the lives of citizens of Shawnee County. Whether you're planning a family reunion, birthday party, corporate picnic, wedding, or simply enjoying the day at the park, Gage Park offers a variety of things to do for persons of all ages. Estimated last year's attendance was over 500,000 people, and we are seeking a plan to better serve the public and future generations to come. Next. Over its long history and use, Gage Park has become a collection of aging facilities and limited activities with various entities responsible for funding and operation that provide a diverse experience but fall short of the collective potential and necessary level of care and maintenance. Multiple partners with individual management plans see the need to come together to make this park a better place in the next century. The Facility Land Use Management Plan policy adopted in 2018 outlines the procedures for individual management plans for all Parks and Rec facilities. Classified as a regional park, Gage Park would require extensive research, planning, and public engagement to create this IMP. Therefore, requiring the need to contract with professionals to assist with the development of this long-range master plan. Our vision for the parklands is to make all parks a place for civic pride that result in high productivity and positive, passive, and active use that support the healthy and active lifestyle of people of all ages. Strategy from the master plan, 1.7. Update the Parks Master Plan for Gage Park to include the master plan developed for the zoo and the Discovery Center, incorporating the diversity of uses and the addition of attractions to improve productivity. Some of the tactics involved would be to develop special event areas in the park, develop an updated loop trail system in the park, develop an updated asset management plan to improve existing amenities in the park, to revise and incorporate existing master plans, improve visitor experiences by designing infrastructure to accommodate current and future needs, and finally to determine the most effective use of property and location of amenities.
With your prior approval, we went out for an RFPP with a selection committee, and they recommend that we go with Confluence to lead this master plan. And PJ Novak and Hank Moyers are here today to get into the details of and explain their scope of services.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is P.J. Novak. I'm a principal with Confluence in our Kansas City office, and with me is Hank Myers, our project manager. He's an associate with our firm. We're, as I said, a landscape architecture and planning firm. We're one of 6 offices. In the prior of Hank, as project manager, was involved in the overall system master plan a few years back, so we got a great deal of familiarity with that. I'm going to go through just briefly what our presentation entails this morning. We're going to talk about our team introduction, we'll talk about our process, and then also the timeline for completion of the master plan. With that, we put together a very specific team when we first saw the RFP for the project. We'll be leading the charge as far as leading the team. Hank, as I said, is our project manager. We also have on the team a firm by the name of PJV. They're an architectural firm out of Kansas City, so they're helping us with assessing the existing conditions on the physical elements, and then also they do a lot of zoo planning and design work, so they've kind of got that experience too, so we know that what the zoo needs out of the park, so we have a lot of knowledge that comes to that. Second on our team is Pros Consulting. Pros actually led the master plan, the overall countywide master plan. Leon and his group are on our team for very specific use, so they're going to be taking, Hank can get into a little more of this, taking a look at business management and the future of the park from that standpoint. Then we also have PEC. We have them on our team to take a look at existing conditions, utilities, infrastructure within the park, and infrastructure outside when we talk about circulation. Then also we've got architectural and historical research. Sid Milstein is an architectural historian out of Kansas City. Interesting kind of parallel here. Sid and Confluence completed the work to get the original portion of the Kansas City, Missouri Park System on the National Register, which was designed by George Kessler. Gage Park was also designed by George Kessler, so we're going to have, Sid will be taking a look at the physical structures on site, taking a look at what was in Kessler's original plan, what is still there, and just kind of help us understand and work with that rich history that the park has. Briefly, our scope, we've got an 8-step process. First of all, a site assessment. Hank will get into the details of this. Preliminary public engagement, park concept development, the preliminary concept review, the public engagement and alternative selection, then the individual management plan, future design and construction, and also the final master plan and presentation to the various entities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Hank to get in a little more detail.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hank Myers with Confluence, project manager for the project. The first phase of this project and our scope of work that we've identified is the site assessment. And this scope, or this piece of the phase of the work, actually spreads out over 3 to 4 months and has some overlap with some of the other pieces. This is kind of our inventory and assessment. This is our fact-finding mission portion of the project. This is where we start getting into the data gathering. As PJ mentioned, the historic park review. We start to interview various user groups and partners to understand what's desired for the park from the standpoint of the various user groups. And then we also go through and we do what we call the Walk the Park workshop. This is where we start to go spend a full day within the park, identify from the people that know the park the best what are some of the challenges or opportunities for the park as we get into designing of those pieces. Those are going to be some of the main elements that we need to understand. We also poll the different staff with an open house, and then also start to identify what the vision and guiding principles are going to be for operating and maintaining and improving the park throughout the process. And then we come back and we actually give a presentation back to the city and county on what we've found through that process, and then start to identify what some of the different programming elements are going to be that we might incorporate into the park as part of this process. The second phase is where we start to poll the public. We take that programming information that we've heard previously and start to identify what's most desired by the community. And we do this through keypad polling. So what we'll have is a PowerPoint presentation We'll flash a number of different images on there to find out what the highest rated elements are that the county wants. And then that helps us to define what the program's going to be for the park. Take about 2 weeks just to put the presentation together and then identify what the various meetings are that need to occur. Phase 3 is where we start to get into the actual design of those pieces. We take about 6 to 8 weeks for that process. And this is where we start to develop the initial concepts. There's 2 to 3 initial concepts that we develop, and we will bring those back to the staff for information and approval. We will then take those out to the staff, as I mentioned, over 2 to 3 weeks, present those to the staff, get their input on what revisions need to be made so that we can make those revisions and then bring it out to the public. Again, we will poll the public on what their preferred options are, and there may be a combination of elements that we get from each of these different plans that we'll take and refine into a final plan. As part of this, too, as we get past that process and we start to identify what that final plan is going to be, we'll start to develop our individual management plan. Now, this is where PROS comes into play. They'll help us to identify what the implementation costs are, the operations and maintenance costs, what are some of the different potential revenue sources, the market and business analysis, and the public-private partnerships that can occur, but also the opportunities for a conservancy for the park. And then, as part of that process, we will refine the concept and what we heard from the public input into a final design. We'll identify what the phasing is and then what the estimate of probable costs are for the different phases. Ultimately, what this comes down to is as we refine in the final plan, we'll develop the written document and then present that to the county and the city as far as what our process has been, what the final master plan is, what those recommendations, and what our phasing and implementation strategy is for this. And we'll go through the necessary adoption process for the park. Overall, our timeline for this is over the next 8 months, starting here in June, and we'll wrap up probably towards the middle of January is our hope. This is a fairly lengthy process. We get into a lot of depth on this, and so we just want to make sure that we cover all of our bases. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them at this point.
Commissioner Bueller?
I don't have any questions right now. No.
Commissioner Archer?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have some questions, but I'll say those for right now.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So I guess we would just ask for approval of this contract.
So,
Commissioners, one thing I would like to add to that is every town, every city, every county is unique, but Topeka and Shawnee County is more unique in that the public engagement here, I should have practiced this so I don't offend anybody here in this room or across the parking lot, but working with the city and the county together is going to be huge. There's going to have to be numerous amounts of public engagements with both the city council, county commission, as we move forward on this to get support. As you can see, there's several other partners who's come in here. Visit Topeka's here. All of these pulling all of these pieces together it will be enormous. I just wanted to throw that in there too, because everybody thinks that public engagement is important, but in Topeka and Shawnee County, it is even more important, if you know what I mean. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
And John, I think we're all assuming that everybody understands, so the park is under the management of Shawnee County Parks and Recreation, the zoo is under the management of the city of Topeka, and then we contract with Helen Hawker.
We contract with Helen Hawker.
And then we also have nonprofit with the children's, yeah.
Correct,
So,
yes.
right.
And the other things too, good use of land. I have about 12 acres worth of valuable park land right on 10th Street that is being used for storage of wood chips, piles of aluminum, those type of things.
Right.
There are better places that we should be able to do those shop functions from. Working with Brendan on operational things, and also Danae at the Discovery Center are also ways that I would think that and I have not done an analysis, but I would think that the two parties would probably be able to repay this master plan in a short amount of time, just through operational expenses.
John, just some questions. The first question that we always get asked from the public is, why do we need some outside group to come in and pay them $100,000 or more to tell us what we maybe already have the skills or knowledge to do?
I don't think we do have anybody on staff that has those skills and knowledge.
Between our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Friends of the Zoo, the Children's Discovery Center's Advisory Board, the City of Topeka, the nonprofit, we couldn't get together and do all of this.
All very smart, all very hardworking people, none of them trained in park development, those type of things that we need to have in this master plan.
The second question that we often get asked is, it seems to me that you're trying to draw some outside group so you can make radical changes and then blame it on them so that we don't have to take the blame for these radical changes.
What? No. Radical changes, the park has slowly developed over 120 years, but I think even one thing that kind of verified that I was on the right path, or at least in my own mind, was when I was talking with Brendan one day that the guy who had the job before Brendan at the zoo, Gary Clark, has tried to get a master plan for Gage Park, so that all of the entities there worked as one all the way back to the 1960s, and to me, he's been what the Topeka Zoo, he's created the Topeka Zoo, made it what it is today. Pretty bright person, and I think that's important that we have a master plan so we're all three developing together, because it's getting older, things are going to need to be fixed. Whose parking lot is it? Who's responsible for the roads? All of those type of things as we move forward.
Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of questions here. I first want to point out that when we did the master plan for all of Shawnee County Parks and Rec, it was $110,000. And now we're talking about doing a master plan for Gage Park for $138,000. The price seems exorbitant to me, number one. And I was looking back, we have a memo to the Board of Commissioners' past actions supporting this project include authorizing Parks and Rec to solicit requests for price proposals, which was to develop a comprehensive long-range plan for Gage Park at an estimated cost between $75,000 and $110,000. And now all of a sudden we're at $138,000. I don't understand why we're spending so much, and why is the master plan needed, and why do we have to spend so much for this plan? That's the first question.
Just as a minor point of emphasis here, 28% or $39,000 of it is privately raised funds through the Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Foundation. That's not general fund or tax dollars going there, but still there's a big chunk of that going through there. But also the role and the input that we're increased with the zoo and that potential there too, and they've stepped up to pay for their half or their half. We kind of set that up on percentage of the parkland being used, and so the zoo has kind of stepped up and to incorporate some of that together, because they know that the zoo doesn't just stop right at the gates. I don't want to speak for Brendan here, but as you're driving through Gage Park from every direction, you're beginning to make your impression of the entire park, the entire zoo. It's the parking lots, all of those type of things. The whole place ought to operate as one instead of three different facilities. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but.
John, I think the question was, how do we go from 75 to 110 to 138? I think, Commissioner Archer, wasn't that your question?
Yeah, we've added to the scope of these projects. When we first started this, we didn't know how much public engagement. We've pushed that public engagement way up. It's also been a long project. It's been close to 2 years that we've been working on some of this, and as we flesh some of this stuff out, that was the price that we came up with, and We went through the RFP route, we picked the contractor that, we had our several committee members, and Rachel might talk about this on that next item, is several committee members from our foundation and advisory board who sat in on the selection committee and helped us negotiate this contract too. So they may have some answers too.
John, along that line, you mentioned the partnerships, and while not this item, it's the next item, talks about the fee sharing. How much money did the Children's Discovery Center contribute?
They did not participate in the actual paying of the, of this part of it, correct.
Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, I do want to know how Confluence was selected, what the process was.
Do you cover that, Rachel, in your presentation, or should I answer that right?
I can answer it.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rachel Meyer, Partnership Development Coordinator for Parks and Recreation. This was a long process, and I do want to introduce a few members of the selection committee that are here today. With the department, we have Mike McLaughlin, Communications. We have Bill Rippon, Park Planner. We also have Linda Kennedy from the Parks and Rec Foundation, and Matt Pavarnik, also from the Parks and Rec Foundation and Greater Topeka Partnership. We have Vicki Brocky from the Topeka Civic Theater and Brendan Wiley from the Topeka Zoo. We also have Jim Martin, that is from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And so that group, along with Bill Busher from the Parks and Rec Foundation, had several meetings. We did, go through the RFP process, and we narrowed down and then represented to you 3 possible teams to work with us on the master plan. From that interview process, then we did put the priority together, and Confluence was number 1 on that list of recommendations. So we did start negotiating with them, working with Jim Crowell's approval, Betty Griner's approval. We had the county selection committee also review that as well. So with this process, we did go through the scope and what the goals were according to the master plan. We had several different points of view. Of course, all of the partners involved do have different levels of involvement in the park and had different ideas. We originally had a Gage Park Coalition, and in addition to the selection committee members that I introduced, Brett Otting is also here with Visit Topeka, and they did have staff members involved in those Gage Park Coalition meetings. Because of those meetings, we did talk about safety in the park. We talked about co-marketing in the park. How could we work together to save money on joint resources? We've been working with the Discovery Center on exchange of services where we mow the Discovery Center land, but the Discovery Center then allows all of our day camp children to come visit Discovery Center. So there is some exchange of services similar to that with the zoo as well, and then also with Topeka Civic Theater operating Helen Hawker Theater. So because of all of those different entities working together, we did feel like we really needed to focus on 1, public engagement, and 2, developing a business model where we can all work together, possibly through a conservancy, and we'll let Confluence determine what the best plan is for that. So because of all of that discussion, that is how we came up with the final plan. And we did make some changes because we thought that we also needed more staff involvement from the beginning that may not have occurred in the past, and that is a real concern because we have a lot of really dedicated employees that have some great ideas, and we want them heard. So we did decide to add a few more steps to the process that we might not have done with the Parks and Rec master plan originally. So hopefully that helps answer your question a little better.
Yeah, I guess we've seen several 6-figure studies done by consultants recently that didn't turn out the way we would have liked to have seen them turn out, that I don't think were positive. So that's my main concern with starting another six-figure study. And we see a timeline and we see a process. What we don't see is a listing of advantages and disadvantages and costs and benefits.
Correct. So this would...
That's what I'd like to see.
Okay.
To spend $138,000 on another study.
Okay. Well, in Confluence, we can work with them a little further. In their RFPP, we did request that there are additional services that we can work with them on, and that does include a fundraising plan, construction documents, and all of that can happen later after the master plan is finalized. And I would also probably say about the implementation, if that's the concern, you can see through the Parks and Rec Master Plan, this is one of the strategies that we are now implementing. So our department is very dedicated to implementing the plans and not just putting them on a shelf. And I don't think that any of the partners here in the room would allow us to just sit on this.
Final question, if I may. Is there a physical constraint on what the final plan would look like?
Not necessarily. I think especially with the public input, that, probably will lead us towards that final plan. We haven't given them any direction so far. They haven't had any input from any of the operation partners. So at this point, I would say no.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, just to add on to that, we have several people from our advisory board and foundation and myself who are going to be sitting in on that. We know that the park is in Topeka, Kansas, in the middle of the United States. We're not going to try to build in the Golden Gate Bridge Park, some of those type of things. All of the components of our master plan of being financially sustainable, being able to manage those going forward, all of those components will be part of this plan before it ever comes back to the county commissioners.
I would just say, rather than focusing just on one area, I think it's commendable that we're looking at the entire park. We have a huge opportunity here to make a day trip for a family and to enhance all those visits to all those amenities there in the park. Again, the county could just sit aside here and do our own thing, or the city could do their own thing at the zoo. We're coming together. It's going to cost some dollars to look at, not just now, but into the future. How are we going to make the most of this park? And so I think that's a good thing. It costs some dollars. It's in more detail. So I'm going to be supportive of this.
At this time, some of the concerns that I have is we have very competent staff on hand with Parks and Recreation. The zoo has very competent staff on hand. The Discovery Center has very competent staff on hand. And then we have a very dedicated volunteer group through each of those three entities. And we have a lot of people that are very, very invested into Gage Park. And I just don't know that it's been proven that we can't do this as a joint effort between the city and the county to work together towards a Gage Park master plan, and why we need an outside entity to get paid $138,000. No disrespect to Confluence, but why we can't do this on our very dedicated individuals that care very deeply. A year ago, when John made the comment about cold spaghetti on the wall, we were still getting comments 2 months later about what's going to happen to my Gage Park. And that's how the people in Shawnee County and Topeka view it, my Gage Park. I don't know that there's a landmark in the community that has more emotional connection than my Gage Park. And so when we talk about things like what happens if Helen Hawker Theater needs to go away because we need additional space, or what happens to the horseshoe pit that's been there for over 100 years, what happens to, and then fill in the blank. If we're looking to hire an outside group just to pass the blame on to them for what needs to happen, that's just shifting the responsibility. And so I think that if we have very dedicated and very competent people here, it hasn't been proven yet why we need an outside group to do this. Commissioner Archer?
I totally agree. I think if we have a champion from Parks and Rec, from the zoo, from Children's Discovery, and Helen Hocker, that work together as a team, they can do this. I don't think we need an outside company to do this for us, and I think $138,000, regardless of who's paying for it, is an outrageous sum to do what we can do in-house. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
John, at this time, I don't know that it sounds as if you have support to move forward on this. If you want to take this back to staff and work on this and bring it back to us and make another presentation, I would be open to doing that. Because again, I just don't know that it's been set forth yet why we don't have the ability to do it in-house today. I just don't, it hasn't been proven yet. So, June the 18th is about a month away. Would that give you sufficient time to work on that?
I wouldn't put a date on it because I really don't know what else I can add to this presentation. I did hear a little bit from Commissioner Archer of some kind of financial things I could add to the presentation, but the concepts of making the needed improvements, the deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed, this is all part of that. I don't really know what I have to add to that. We can begin to do it project by project, but then you don't have any kind of orchestrated development. We don't have any engineers on our staff, for instance. When Tom Block sits down to put in new roads, he doesn't just start putting the road in and then keep coming back to it. He sits down and decides what he's going to do from 29th of California all the way to 29th and Croco, plans the entire thing out. That's what we're trying to do here. And they have all the several partners work together. I don't know, let's not put a date on it. We'll go back and we'll visit with Foundation Board and the Advisory Board and see if there's rewatch this presentation and see if there's anything we can come up with.
For the procedural, do you want to make a motion and then have it die for a lack of a second, or just defer the item to a later date?
Well, I know there's not going to be a second, so why would I do that?
I will make a motion to defer the item to a later date to be represented by the Parks and Rec.
I'll second that motion.
Before you vote, there are numerous people who showed up this morning that wanted to come up and speak. I didn't know if now would be a time to do that, if you wanted them to wait as well.
Now would be a great time. If there's any member of the public that wants to speak or add input.
I'll just say, as you're waiting to come up, I want to thank you all for the unbelievable amount of time that you've put into this. Come on up, though. I really appreciate that.
Commissioners, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. And I think we can go back and make it a little bit more clear as to why specifically this is what we think we need. Mm-hmm. And I think the short answer is, if we don't do a master plan like this, we're going to continue to have what we have today. If you drive through Gage Park, you know, it took me so many years to get used to speaking before the council. Now all of a sudden, it's a whole new type of nervousness.
We don't have any lights on our speakers, by the way.
You know, on the zoo side of things, we've been struggling with some issues that relate to not having a plan. Mm-hmm. We sit 38 feet below the Kansas Children's Discovery Center. We're trying to build a garden that we can't build unless we address storm drainage. And if you drive down Zoo Parkway, there's not a single storm drain. There's one near Helen Hocker. There's one in the corner of the zoo parking lot. But that's massive amounts of storm water. And so we're going to address it. But, you know, then you start getting into issues we really need to address it upstream. So we're starting to make changes in the park that aren't really well thought out and not thought out with every partner in mind. Fire hydrants. Up until about 6 weeks ago, there was one fire hydrant in Gage Park, and it wasn't at the zoo. And we've had fires at the zoo before in our history. And, now there's more, but there's just more around the zoo. There's one in front of Blaisdell Pool, and now one within 400 feet of every structure at the zoo. But there was probably an opportunity there to do that better and more comprehensively if we could have worked together. And it's not that, I think all the partners in the park, we love working together. It's just we've all got our own agendas today. And we need that one agenda that's out there. People that come to the park, most of them, I don't think, care or know who's responsible. They're just there at the park that day. They don't know if it's a county issue, if it's a city issue, if it's a Discovery Center issue. They're just there at the park. They see the park as one. And I think all of us share that same vision, that we want it go in one direction. Obviously, I'm biased. I think Gage Park is one of the best city parks in the country. And I think this is an opportunity for it to continue to improve, to get that way. And I think it's also an incredible model of opportunity for our community. We talk about quality of place, and in this 160-acre area, there's 2 different governmental agencies, there's 3 different nonprofit organizations that are working, and numerous other either formal or informal associations that come together and give Gage Park the life that it is. Give whichever commissioner said, my park, people think it's my park. That's right. It is their park, and it's amazing. We've got an incredible opportunity, and we'll get it right and make sure that you understand exactly what we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Brendan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Martin with the Advisory Board. I really didn't expect to speak to you in this manner this morning, but so I'll be fairly blunt, I guess, in some senses. First issue, I think, is the ability of Parks and Rec to come together to pull off a study, an effort of this nature. Now, you're aware, I've worked with a lot of these folks in a lot of different capacities for several years as an engineer and a volunteer. They are excellent in what they do. They are absolutely dedicated employees. They are so capable, they keep a system running that teeters on the edge all the time as far as staff and funding, et cetera. They do not have the ability to pull off this type of study in a step back, objective manner. They're too busy trying to perform and keep a large system operating, which you as a commission and the public have the expectation that they deliver services day in and day out, every day, with no glitches and no problems. They physically don't have time, and in large part don't have some of the expertise that's needed to do this work. And that's not a knock on them. They're doing their job that they've been asked to do. They don't have enough time, expertise, and to be able to accomplish this. And I think the one point
I heard earlier that Commissioner Cook, I think you talked about the My Gage Park. That's exactly the problem that we're trying to get away from. And I have to tell you, the advisory board is very much in support of this effort and tack, because when you talk about My Gage Park, everybody in this community has an opinion about Gage Park and what it should be or should not be. And we're talking about setting the stage for the next 100 years. This is not a tomorrow thing. It's for the next 100 years. We talk about the history. You talk about My Gage Park. You're setting the stage here for something that 50 to 100 years from now, people should be able to sit back and say, hey, those people in 2018 were pretty smart. They took a hard look and made Gage Park work. And I think the problem you get with thousands of individual opinions is you never get anything done. Now, I think when we worry about, and Commissioner Archer, believe me, I know worrying about financial is important. And it's prudent. And part of the reason that the advisory board is so involved is we want to make sure that what comes out of this activity is sustainable, both from an operating, financial standpoint. The public engagement, et cetera, is great, and it's a huge opportunity to allow those people that believe it's My Gage Park to have their input. And we all know that when you have that type of input, your dollar desires can very easily outstrip what you can do. That's partly why we're on this selection committee and on the steering committee, et cetera, is to look at the operating capabilities and the operating plan and the sustainability, so that indeed Gage Park is continued operating, 100 years from now. I think when we worry about the difference between $110,000 and $138,000, we're losing the sight of the picture of, I think you, John, you said 500,000 people. The impact on this community is far and away above $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Far away. I think we're making a very big mistake in the sense of trying to weigh that level of dollars versus the long-term impact on this community. The opportunity is there with the entities that are in that park to work together and to form something that will be here for a long time. The decisions we make now and the ability of those decisions to be fully vetted by not only the public, by you all also, and by all the people involved, that opportunity doesn't come along very often. I think earlier it was alluded to the fact that with the different entities in the park, sometimes you have difficulties deciding what to do with the street. Brendan's comment about the drainage is very appropriate. You can't have good public facilities unless you do the infrastructure appropriately. And you can't do the infrastructure appropriately unless you have cooperation. And so that's what this study is all about, to get down to the nitty-gritty details, make this thing work, come up with a situation that it can work. And I think it really behooves us to look and not the picture immediately right in front of us as far as what kind of phone calls we're going to get tomorrow, but to look long-term. These folks that run the zoo, the Discovery Center, et cetera, whether they be controlled by the city or the county, they're prepped. Rachel and John Boyd done a tremendous amount of work bringing these folks together. To simply set that aside, I think, is not appropriate action. And again, this is an opportunity, and yes, we can kick the can down the road. We can defer it. John and staff can't tell you a whole lot more, I don't think, in reality, because the current status of Gage Park is really not known. I mean, it's a hodgepodge of good and bad. It's been there, it's been well used. It needs a real good look. And that's what this is all about. So, you know, I think from the, and I can speak for the advisory board on this, that we're very, very adamant that, you know, this type of look for Gage Park is exactly what the planning process should be. The overall planning process, you alluded to, the master plan, was the big look, the system-wide look. Then you're going down to your big two in the Gage Park and Lake Shawnee and a couple of other locations in town. So, you know, I would urge you to not table this, to meet it head on and direct. That $28,000 difference that we're worrying about here is far and away insignificant to the long term of this city and the quality of life in this city. And we can bandy that word about a lot, but it's true. I mean, when my grandkids come into this town right now, first place we go is Gage Park. And they live in Washington. They want to go to Gage Park. We go to the zoo. You know, but as an engineer, I appreciate the problems Brendan's having with expanding within an environment there. So that's the purpose of this study, is to make all the players in the sandbox compatible over a long term and in a sustainable manner. And that decision, there's not going to be any hidden decisions. There's not going to be hidden facts and figures. This group, Confluence, we've had some very direct conversations with them. I think they're very aware that the financial and the sustainability issues are prominent. So with that, I could probably go on for another hour, but I'm not going to do that. I'd attempt to answer any questions, but, you know, I would urge you that you move on with this, because it is your opportunity to keep the ball rolling, and to not keep the ball rolling, I think, is not a community vision at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Just to respond briefly, Jim, there's been a lot of changes over the last 100 years. I don't know that any of us want to go back to 1918 to a mud-bottomed pool. Blaisdell is a marked improvement over that. But I guess my perspective, what we're looking at is, why do we need an outside organization to come in and help corral us? Why aren't we able to come together, our nonprofits, our city, and our county? The city and the county come together over numerous occasions. JADO is one example where we can set aside our differences to work for the betterment of our community. Why aren't we able to do that? Why do we need an outside organization to do that for us? And maybe that's just the question that I'm looking for. So.
I'm going to stand up because we're past our hour break, so.
Thank you for keeping us on time.
Standing ovation.
All
rise. Red Outing visit Topeka. I think the reason why you would want to use a consultant, I have a pretty good example. About a year ago in May, Visit Topeka had the opportunity to do a project that would benefit the community, benefit Visit Topeka by putting some money in our pocket, but that meant using a consultant. And the split would have been 50-50. And I'm pretty greedy, and I said, oh, we can do this ourselves. And just last week, I was going through some notes, and here we are 365 days later, and I have no money in my pocket, and I have nothing to give the community because we get busy. So I guess my argument on that side is that this is an 8-month process, and 100% I would agree that there are the right people in town that could do something like this, but it would probably be an 18th-month project. I count roughly 16 dates on here, and I can stand up here and say I support this 100%, which I do, but I bet I can only make half of those meetings, maybe. If you've driven by the zoo, you see the construction going on. I bet Brendan's in the same boat. John's probably in the same boat. It's we are all busy operating and working, and if we're fortunate enough to have enough money to all hire director of long-term vision staff, then we may be able to do something like this. But it needs done. The zoo does need updated, or the Gage Park does need updated. I think all three of you agree that Gage Park needs updated. It just comes down to, do we want to get it updated now when the momentum's really going, or do we want it to be one of the last things we get around to when we have a moment? So.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. Motion made to defer this item to a later date to be determined by Commissioner Cook.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer.
The question.
Yes.
Just, so anyone commissioner can then place this back on the agenda,
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely. Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-166-2018 between Shawnee County Parks and Recreation, City of Topeka, and the Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Foundation, outlining the administering and maximum cost of the Gage Park Master Plan, with Parks and Recreation providing $55,949, City of Topeka providing $43,000, and the Parks and Recreation Foundation providing $39,051.
With the first item being, or B2 being deferred, I don't know that it's prudent at this point to go into B3. So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have a question,
Yes.
though. First, thank you to all of those who stepped up to help with this, but since we have deferred it, was there any time limit put on, the acceptance of this amount towards this project, or had that been discussed at all?
The funding agreement that you have on the agenda and have in the packet, that did not have a timeline.
Okay.
The idea is that the county has the contract with Confluence, and a separate contract was formulated for the funding agreement based on these amounts. I can't say whether those will or won't change based on delaying the process.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to defer this item as well.
Second.
Motion to defer by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Just so I understand, John Boyd has got a group of people together that represent the zoo, Children's Discovery, all of these items. Is that correct? In order to take a look at a contractor. Tell me a little bit about that. You've gotten everybody together.
I've been involved in the process, not by
Okay.
myself, correct,
Okay.
yes. But yes, we've had meetings and we've had discussions about planning for Gage Park, yes.
Well, it sounds like we've got a foundation and a crew of people together that could continue to talk about this. Is that?
I would defer to Mr. Knight, but I would
Yeah.
assume that we can have
Okay.
discussions,
Okay,
absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood what role that you had, John. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
our next item.
Item B4, consider authorization and execution of contract C-167-2018, amendment to contract C-63-2018 with Slide Pros, delaying certain repairs on the water feature project at Bladesdale Family Aquatic Center in Gage Park until the fall of 2018, and provide for payment of invoice for existing repairs to the slide and feature for $10,020 with funding from the Capital Maintenance 3R Fund.
Good morning, County Commissioners. David Alaker, Shawnee County Aquatics. We're on our final countdown. We got 1 week to go. What has happened is we agreed with, you guys approved a contract with Slide Pros. They did an excellent job on the family slide at Blaisdell. The bucket feature, not so much. They didn't follow the means of the contract. We've gotten with them. There was a miscommunication on their part. They were going to come in the spring, well, actually, probably last week, and pull it and fix it and bring it back. I go, no, we're waiting until the end of the season because we're about ready to open up. They didn't replace some of the parts that was supposed to be replaced. They just basically put a paint job on it and gave it back to me. They are in agreement to coming back and doing the rest of the repairs. Part of the payment is for the paint job itself. We are holding enough back to where they will come back and finish the project. Have any questions?
I have none. I'll move approval of the contract.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item C, Health Department, number 1, consider approval of request to fill a vacant registered nurse position in the maternal child health outreach program at an annual salary of $65,582, including benefits funded through the Maternal Child Health Block Grant from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher with the Health Department. Due to a retirement, we are asking to refill the registered nurse position. It is in our Maternal Child Health Outreach Program. It is completely funded through the Maternal Child Health Block Grant that we received through Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And as mentioned, the salary and benefits are $65,582, and this was included in our 2018 budget. This particular position involves a variety of job duties. These include doing the newborn home visits, which involve transition from hospital to home for at-risk families, including the neonatal intensive care unit babies from Stormont Vale. They also teach a portion of the baby basics classes, which were our new initiative last fall, which are group prenatal classes eligible or available to anyone here in our community. And then in addition to those duties, they also serve as the primary abstractor for our fetal infant mortality review program. So they are doing all the medical records reviews and abstractions for both mother and infant in order to prepare cases for that program. I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Motion for approval
I'll
by
second.
Commissioner Archer.
Thank you.
Second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item D has been pulled until Thursday. Item E, County Counselor, number 1, consider approval of change order number 2 to contract C-95-2018 with Champion Builders for the East Topeka Learning Center renovation and addition project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Krause, Shawnee County Counselor. This is a change order. I'm going to ask you to do something rare, which is spend less money on this project. $13,401 less is the net result of some value engineering that the architects did on the project, working in conjunction with the contractor, some changes in some flooring and some other items. So this item is a net deduct on the contract that we're asking for approval today. I will give you a heads up that there will be an additional change order coming for an increase related to a fill issue on the project. Be happy to answer any more specific questions you might have.
Commissioner Archer.
I was just going to say, change orders give and they take away. But I did notice a couple of the items were taking signs off, I think on the north and the south side. Was that part of the change order? I was...
It says delete sign directly south of building in planting bed, including concrete footings and light fixtures and circuit. I assume that they assumed that other signing that they had was adequate and that was not necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll move for approval of the change order.
Second.
Motion made for approval of the change order by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or member of the public to address the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. I just want to invite the commissioners and the public Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. at the Bettis Sports Complex. The foundation is announcing the 2018 inductees to the Shawnee County Baseball Hall of Fame. The actual event is held on July 18th at the Ramada Inn, and this year's key speaker is Tom Bergmeyer, ex-Royal, and I'm old enough to have his baseball card from the early 70s. I'm hoping he'll sign that for me. I'll have to dig it out, but I'm looking forward to the event. And again, the press conference is at Bettis Sports Complex on Wednesday at 11 a.m.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Curtis Pitts. I wanted to come and talk to the county commission and say, first of all, we're very excited about the opportunity to be here and present to you today. As you can see around the city and throughout our community, more and more people are getting involved in this grassroots campaign to keep our community and our kids involved in some positive activities. We're seeing people from, from bank managers, bank owners, to people who were criminals who were coming and getting involved and volunteering, trying to make sure that the same thing that happened in the 90s doesn't happen again. One of the things that we want to make sure that we ask our leadership in our community is that we've got to get out of our comfort zone and say we can't do business as usual. Last year we had 30 homicides in our city, a record-breaking year. And if you look at those victims and the perpetrators, many of them were not the usual suspects. And so we had a year of passion where people were feeling down and hurt. And so those people who could have gotten involved didn't get involved because that number could have increased. We've got to build momentum in our community to help our young people and our community at its grassroots level find hope and opportunity. There are some fantastic things that are happening in our city. We just got to continue to tie them together. The things that's happening with the East Topeka Learning Center, the things that's happening with the Chamber, Go Topeka, Downtown Topeka, things that's happening with Washburn University, as well as what you're seeing people who have very little show up at the YMCA and bring food to kids on Saturday nights because they knew what it was like when they had nowhere to go. If you see all of our social service agencies, they're doing fantastic jobs. But we got to look at the fact that on Saturday nights, after 5 o'clock, our kids don't have anywhere to go. And we can't dump everything on Parks and Recreation here in our community because we have the ability as a community to put things together ourselves and provide opportunities without it costing additional money. One of the things I do believe in is that not every situation you have to dump more money into it. We're at a point as being the heartbeat of our nation, and I say this over and over again, as the heartbeat of our nation, an abolitionist state, where when the worst of our worst was coming about, we saw a group of people from different races move to Kansas to stop slavery and to stop negative behavior and to stop the painful hurt. So we have a passion and a responsibility to say, we're going to think outside of the box and get engaged and invite people to the table who haven't been there before. And we've got to create concepts and opportunities that say we have hope and we have pride in our community. I'm seeing one of the best campaigns I've seen in the nation right here, and I'm seeing people, I was cracking up because you're seeing kids taking pictures of it. It's the 2022, I think it is, when I'm seeing guys that are all posed up at this little trailer that, you can take pictures at because people are looking for something to believe in, and they need to continue to believe in our community. But right below the surface here, it's bubbling over. You got a chief and a sheriff who's proactive in doing things that haven't been done before, so I'm very hopeful and excited about their campaign and their desire. Why do I say that? Because one, they're local guys, and they're not going anywhere. There's not going to be trial by error and then disappear. The other thing is that we have a choice right now as a city. Either we're going to say, I heard the gentleman say, 100 years from now, people are going to say, what was the leadership thinking about when we're at this crossroads? And the easiest thing to do in this meeting today is to minimalize the relationships of the poorest and the unrepresented people in our community. And everybody was waiting for me to make this a black issue, but poverty has no color. What we're dealing with right now in our community is a feeling of hopelessness when in reality, we should be embracing each other and talking about the great things that are happening in our city. But sometimes that's not the popular thing to do. But if we all think about the organizations that we participate in, who we donate to, who we do allow RFPs to be allowed to contract with, we can honestly say it's been business as usual. And I say this to our entire community. If our children were sick at home and we took them to a doctor and we said, "Doc, my child's sick, I don't know what's wrong." And they said, "Well, take this," and you come back 2 weeks later and say, "Doc, there's been no change, and my child's still sick." On that third time, are you going to go back to the same doctor, or are you going to find and get a second opinion? We've got to stop minimalizing everybody in our community and get to that second opinion point before we lose some more people in our community who are outstanding, who can give us hope. And I want to say this as I stop talking. Young people in our city are really trying to do the right thing. I watched graduations yesterday, and I seen kids who were on honor roll whose parents were drug addicts, drug dealers, and gang bangers. Now they're off to college on academic scholarships. So people are learning and they're listening. But if we keep burning bridges because of our own arrogance, including all of us, I'm not putting you guys down to anyone, I'm saying we've got to get out of our comfort zone and say, hey, when are we going to stop minimalizing and getting those second opinions and start getting to the total health of our community? I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today, because once a community becomes hopeless, then they can be pulled in any direction. Once a community becomes hopeless, then anyone can come in and make us all enemies of each other. And once a community becomes hopeless, then the children move away or they surely die. And I thank you for this opportunity to come and visit with you today, and looking forward to partnering with you and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Bueller?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Commissioner Archer?
No, fine, thank you.
Just congratulations to all of those graduates. Work hard, well done, and look forward to the great things that you will do. I know that Commissioner Bueller is probably as enthusiastic as any parent over the graduations.
Definitely.
Our next item.
Item 6, executive session.
There is a need to go into executive session today for personnel matters of non-elected personnel as we continue with department head evaluations. Let's start the executive session at 10:30 and go for an hour to 11:30 to see if additional time is needed. So executive session commences at 10:30 to go to 11:30.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. I might note that there is no action intended. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? We are in executive session, beginning at 10:30.
For our long-lasting impact.
We are back in session from executive session. No action taken. We are adjourned.
For which it stands,
Thanks.
one nation, under